Hi, my name is Justin Leslie, and I was a Pfizer whistleblower and was an inside agent for Project Veritas and O'Keefe Media Group, both started by James O'Keefe. When I started on this long journey several years ago, I had no idea what I was getting into, what I was going to uncover, and what I would come to find.
I went to this Bohemian Club and it's upset people. So I just wanted to hear from you and kind of take your temperature and see how you're feeling, see how you're doing, like what's going through your mind.
James, how did you even get invited there? And it's the most powerful secret society in the world.
As it turns out, what I found out turned my whole world completely upside down, and I'd like to share it with you. This is my story, Project Whistleblower.
Everyone here to join me is Justin Leslie, formerly of Pfizer, who then went on to work for Project Veritas, then O'Keefe Media Group, and you were a double agent. You just dropped this crazy documentary on your whole experience with Project Veritas and OMG. A lot of people had questions on what really went on there, so you witnessed it all. But what makes your documentary so newsworthy is that there's very newsworthy evidence that was never put out by James O'Keefe by Project Veritas. And the question is, why? Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Ivory. Thank you for having me on. It's been a long time coming. I really appreciate you having me on, and I just can't wait to have this conversation and, reach your audience so that they can see my story and hear what I have to say and just, to the people at Project Veritas, to the people at Pfizer, I have meant no harm by any of this. I just, as a Pfizer scientist who was working on this toxic poison bomb, as we'll call it, right, or as this hokey pokey, I knew that it was causing a lot of harm to people, and that's ultimately why I did reach out to Project Veritas. So, without further ado, did you want to do a question and answer type thing, or?
Absolutely. So you were working for Pfizer in 2021. By the way, this whole documentary, I'm linking it down in the description. Very interesting to watch. I wrote down all the things from this documentary that key evidence that was suppressed by Project Veritas. The first one, your recordings of Pfizer staffer Ramin Darbari saying
Ramin.
Ramin, he said you talked to him in October 21st, 2021, saying they're getting reports of zillions of side effects. The recordings were never put out. Also, findings from a study of the samples. So since you were working in the lab, you had the little bottles of the new pharmaceutical product.
Yes.
And you give it to Project Veritas to study because everyone wants to know what's really in these pharmaceuticals. So they take it to a lab, uncover strange things, and then never put it out.
Yep. So let me speak to the first part, Ramin, and then I'll get to the vial part. Yeah, with Ramin, I just, I actually had a real world experience where somebody connected, to my mother, to her, right? It was like two parts removed, where they had died, like literally the day after taking a booster injection. And so, as a scientist working on this, or the hokey pokey, I I was freaking out on the inside. I was like, I have to do something and this needs to be done. So I was just eliciting information out of people, right, on the inside. And Ramin brought up zillions of adverse events that were happening with clinical, and said it's none of our worries, right? It's nothing to worry about, right? You're like, that's not your job to worry about this. And I said, in my head, right? I mean, because I'm playing like a a character essentially in this matrix of working at Pfizer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was baffled by that,
Thank you to the sponsor of my coverage, National Gold Group. Gold has soared past 2,100 an ounce in 2023. Donald Trump recently warned that the US dollar no longer being the world standard will be our greatest defeat in 200 years. Military conflicts in Israel, Ukraine, and Yemen, plus rate hikes on the table, are fueling gold's meteoric rise. Several major banks are all forecasting sizable rate cuts in an election year. Some say this is Biden's Hail Mary attempt at keeping the White House. Meanwhile, our national debt is skyrocketing. There's a direct correlation between the national debt and the price of gold. In 2020, the US debt was 23 trillion and gold was 1,500 an ounce. By 2023, it had jumped to 33 trillion in debt and gold up past 2,000 an ounce. Why are so many Americans adding physical gold and silver to their portfolios and retirement plans? You can learn why. Call America's own precious metals company, the National Gold Group, today. Mention my channel, Ivory Hecker. You'll always get best in class service from America's conservative precious metals leader. National Gold Group has the IRA fee waiver program on qualifying rollovers. Call 888-617-5927. Get a free investor guide today. National Gold Group is a Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer. Call 888-617-5927. That number in my description. Remember, there's always a risk of loss, and past performance is not indicative of future results.
Right. I'm working on a product that is going in billions of people, right, on a worldwide global scale, right? And this innovation is potentially killing people, so where does that land, like, on my heart, right? Like, if I know better, right, why am I working on this thing and I need to speak out about it, right? So when he said zillions of adverse events, that was just mind blowing, right? And then the whole thing leading to the vial transfer, um, you know, I worked with PV to do that as well, and that story went nowhere. Carrie Madej went on Stu Peters' show to expose that, right? But she goes on to say that, Project Veritas was working with a whistleblower, and that, stay tuned for that story, right? And then it kind of, fell apart in a way, right?
Never came out. Crazy that you guys had the product and had it under a microscope and never put that out. So, but you talk about it in the documentary that there was huge risks, laws being broken. The fact that you recorded in Massachusetts a two-party consent state, and there was only one party consent in your recording. Technically, you broke the law if you release those tapes. You or maybe Project Veritas could get charged. And so you put in this documentary recordings, basically Project Veritas deciding we'd rather keep this secret and not break the law because their lawyers told them to. But this bombshell information, they could have found some way to put it out.
Yeah, well, my whole thing is that they also strung me along for 3 months, and the lawyers knew every single thing that I was doing, right, on the inside. So why would they string me along for 3 months and know how I was an unwitting whistleblower who just wanted to help the people, right, give informed consent during this horrible emergency use authorization rollout and the fraud behind it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's massive fraud, right? And so, yes, I'm willing to stick my neck out there, right? Because this weight has been held on my shoulders, right? And I feel like it's a weight that I can no longer bear, and that I need to speak out and speak truth so that people can learn from my human experience, right? So, like, and they're, I've worked with a legal team, and they said that Project Veritas should never have given me given me the equipment in the first place if they were going to string me along for 3 months and then never release the information, right? Especially since the information itself was very, very, very damning, right? What I was doing. Like, I don't think Project Veritas necessarily expected me to even perform as well as I was doing and get this information, right? So, I knew how powerful it was, Ivory, right? Like when James eventually told me that we're not going to release this, I was heartbroken because it, you watched it, so you understand that it leads to Nick Warren, a vice president, telling me that he gamed the system slash gamed the FDA essentially by lying by omission and dancing around during an FDA childhood approval for 5 to 11-year-olds, that this emergency use authorization had a different formulation during the clinical work from what was actually approved, right? We're dealing with, this is the science part, but we're dealing with phosphate buffer and tris buffer. And, you know, Nick Warren goes on to say that we don't want to argue about the underlying chemistry and all of that with this approval, right? But it's really strange when you're dealing with a massive vaccine rollout for something that is about to go into 5 to 11-year-olds, and they admitted, on this, it's on YouTube, like people can go watch it at the 2-minute and 32 mark through the 2-minute and 39 mark, on this YouTube video of the FDA childhood vaccine approval for 5 to 11-year-olds. The meeting was October 26th of 2021, where this was admitted. And so I was asking this vice president about this information, and that's what he told me. He said he gamed the system essentially by, not really addressing it. And it's just really, it's been the weight of the world on my shoulders, because if that information were to be released, right, and Project Veritas did want to go to bat, it would have changed the rollout agenda entirely back in 2021. And for people who have, suffered an injury, right, for people who know loved ones who may have died from taking this vaccine, either immediately or from a prolonged, injury in a sense, right? These shots are like poison bombs essentially, right? And so, who knows what the long-term side effects of these are going to be, so it's been the weight of the world on my shoulders. And it's a shame that I am only able to bring this story to light now.
Yeah, and I sent these points to James today to see if I can get his side of the story on why not release this information about them gaming the system. You have these recordings. You also had blood samples, including blood that was coagulated after taking this pharmaceutical. Then Melissa, another Pfizer whistleblower, she had the luciferase evidence that they also didn't put out. Then you had 400 pages of from Pfizer showing the distribution of the pharmaceutical in the body. Pfizer told you that it's confidential. You gave those 400 pages to Project Veritas. They didn't put it out. Then you had 9 terabyte drive of Pfizer evidence that you handed over to them that I guess they did nothing with. I took down the note about the gaming of the system without human trials. You have the recording from October 6, 2021, video with Conwal Gill, principal scientist at Pfizer, discussing the side effects. And she was saying how this new pharmaceutical technology is sneaky, indicating that the side effects are not as obvious as the Johnson pharmaceutical. It was more obvious.
Johnson and Johnson, yeah.
Apparently in the beginning, you may recall in the spring of 2021, it made big news that someone had a blood clot. It was, matter of fact, 2 people who had a blood clot from Johnson. Yet you have the recording of her saying, basically indicating that those things were happening with the other brands, but that it was, quote, sneaky. Then she talks about skipping through phase 1, 2, 3 of trials, going straight up. She says, you have her on camera saying this, and Project Veritas never put it out. This is when James O'Keefe was still with them.
Yes.
Then you go into child sex trafficking evidence on Twitter, James sitting down with the whistleblower, looking at all the evidence, and then not putting out any of the evidence out. So that's a lot. Then we get into Bohemian Grove.
Yep. We
So
got a
this,
lot to
I
talk
mean,
about.
this documentary is like, oh my gosh, because I know, look, as a journalist, I understand when you've got all these different stories to cover, you can't cover everything. Some things never make air. But this is like major stuff that should have made air. I mean, this stuff goes above and beyond the other stuff that Project Veritas was covering.
I agree. This is the information that the public has the right to know, right? And so that's it. It's broken my heart, right? And so I'm recovering from all of this still. And so this is a way of doing that, voicing my point of view, my perspective from all of this, and
And
you
your
know,
point of view happened to be an actual camera capturing what other people said, not your opinion. So
yeah,
that's what's crazy. Now, Bohemian Grove, you have this ticket, James's ticket into Bohemian Grove. Then
yep,
you have the recording. You recorded him talking to you about going to Bohemian Grove. Now, I wasn't aware of the conspiracy theories about it, and I don't know what to think about that. And when you first told me about this, I said maybe James went in to like cover it, get the truth about it. He's going as a journalist, perhaps.
sure. But he also goes on to say that he saw a ton of people that actually support us there, and
Yeah,
goes on.
your recording with James makes me think otherwise. Like, okay, he just went to attend after all,
Yeah,
because
and
he would
so
have said that he was covering it.
Bohemian Grove is absolutely just ripe for conspiracy. I mean, it made Alex Jones who Alex Jones is today, really, his infiltration from 2003, right? And so, you know, once I heard that on the inside, I was just baffled. I was shocked. I had no idea that this would play out, right? But when it was, I was like, is this a movie? Is this a joke, right? And then so we wanted to see if James would go organically, and so he did, right? And then James was confronted uh by some of my colleagues, and
Uh-huh.
so I knew that it was coming, and he wanted to know if I was going to be on his side, right? And so that's how that conversation played out. And once he admitted it to me, I that was like the last check mark, right? There are many check marks of red flags for me of, dealing with the truth, right? And understanding like between right and wrong at this point, right? You
Mhm.
know, and I was like, how is my leader supposed to be this king of investigative journalism, but he's going to a it's definitely a conspiracy theory, right, of what Bohemian Grove is and what they do there. But these people are sworn to secrecy, Ivory, right? Like when I asked James what he did there and why he went, he wouldn't elaborate on it, right? And you have to just wonder why, right? And so I mean, I thought that your most recent interview was actually very interesting about the Hawaii fires, because the Hawaii Maui fires in Lahaina happened right after the Bohemian Grove gathering, I believe, right? Those were around the first week of August. And your source, I don't remember his name, but brought up lasers and things of that nature that were happening right from the sky, So I myself, as a journalist and as a critical thinker, have looked into how this whole thing could have actually played out, right? Because Hawaii has never, ever really had wildfires like this. And so, the fact that all these blue cars also were not like, experiencing the molten lava type effect from lasers, right, that were
Mhm.
happening. It's definitely ripe for conspiracy for it all to happen. And then James ended up going to Hawaii after I had resigned, right, to ask questions to officials, and it was just very interesting because he wasn't asking those types of questions that I would have been asking.
Well, what is supposed to be bad about Bohemian Grove? Because when you said Bohemian Grove, I was like, okay, he went to a secret meeting. Who cares? That was my thought. So
But I mean, it's after the culmination of everything that's happened to me, being connected to a, all secret men's club that is connected to, billionaires ultimately. And I mean, Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court justice, he has gone there several times, and Speaker McCarthy went there this year as well. So he was
yeah.
caught wearing a Bohemian Club shirt. So if
Hmm.
James is, who he says he is, right, and investigating everybody, right? I mean, why would he go and ask for funding, right, as well? I mean,
Oh,
it's just ripe for conspiracy, and I'm just raising questions at this point, and
yeah.
his supporters probably are asking a lot of questions now.
So let me play the clip of James, you asking James about Bohemian Grove. Here it is.
Finally, on August 23rd, James O'Keefe came clean to me and called me saying,
I went to this Bohemian club that's upset people. So I just wanted to hear from you and kind of take your temperature and see how you're feeling, see what you're doing, like what's going through your mind.
James, I mean, how did you even get invited there? And like, it's the most powerful secret society in the world.
I feel like my own team is like eliciting me and challenging me and questioning me. And I was just a guest. I didn't see anything on there. Some of our people that I've known for many years were there. If I saw something, I would tell you. But, I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that crossed the line or, anything like that. Some strange things, but nothing like what's portrayed by like Alex Jones or anyone else, as far as I can see. And there's a lot of people that support us that are involved in that. Some people on this team are really challenging me in a fundamental way, and it's really more than I can take right now. So I just need to know, like, are you with me? And just tell me the truth, like.
Truthfully, James, I can't say yes to that because of everything that we've been through from Pfizer whistleblower to now.
I can't feel like my own team is like investigating me. You have to trust me. It sounds like you're not.
I sped up the sound on that recording. That's why
It was
but yeah.
1.5 probably.
Okay. You also talked to James about not releasing the tapes. Now, the tapes, I understand the quandary with media outlets on not breaking the law, but I also, this was like a huge investigation. I have this clip about the Project Veritas board member Matthew Tyrmand having the tapes. Here it is.
I spoke with insider agent at PV and OMG, Jasper, who admitted that the footage is still out there and probably in the hands of PV board member Matt Tyrmand.
Just remember, because I care about you, and because I care that this could create more danger for you, because the Massachusetts tapes are still out there.
Massachusetts what?
The microscope tapes. So.
Where are they?
Well, obviously, God willing, only PV has them, but there's a big chance Matt Tyrmand does too.
Interesting.
Matt is a very well-connected fellow with all sorts of ties in Washington and other places, let's just say.
Why is it like a scary thing that Matthew has this evidence? I watched that. I was like, what's going on?
I don't know, Ivory. I think it's time to raise some questions about the trustworthiness of these people, and I come from a place of love, right? And the truth is really not afraid of being investigated ultimately. So when
Yeah.
I've seen all of this play out, right, I just, I trusted God, and I felt the desire and felt called to figure out where my information even was, right? And so when I was
Right.
asking about it, I guess it became suspicious, right? And to me, like when I got some of this information back, right, from Conwall, right, from Ramin, I was just baffled. I was like, how did they not release this information? Like regardless of the legal lawful situation, right? This information would have quite literally helped change the vaccine agenda on a worldwide scale. So keep in mind, I'm also the journalist who got the directed evolution story, right? Which got
Right.
50 million views on Twitter from Pfizer director Jordan Walker, right?
You
So-
went on, to work for Project Veritas and became the undercover guy who dropped their biggest story, went undercover. So, but anyway, I texted Matt Tiermond from the board there at Project Veritas to get his side of it. Just before going on with you, he just texted me back something very mean. I was not expecting that. I was like, oh, I thought I didn't know he disliked me. I'm kidding. I thought it was nice to get his side of it. In part, he says, "Aren't you that weather girl from Houston who then had a nervous breakdown and threw an absolute epic, violent, shrieking and crying temper tantrum?"
Fox Corp has been muzzling me to keep certain information from you, the viewers.
In regards to my whistleblowing, that's what he's saying. He said, I don't have, because I asked for a side of the story. He's like, I don't have a side of the story. I'm just watching all of you clowns do what clowns do, but I'm getting to see a lot of clown effery. So I texted him and James O'Keefe to get their sides of it, so we're not just gossiping, but yikes, I had no idea he was that kind of guy.
Yeah, it's interesting how people are publicly versus behind closed doors.
Yeah. So I wanted to also play from the documentary. Again, guys, a whole documentary down below. James talks to you about why he didn't release the tapes towards the end of the documentary, which you must have just recorded this with him a few months ago. Okay, here it is.
I thought about the tape again after the February. I thought about revisiting it, but a lot of people said it's a few years old. It's a little old. It's probably not advisable to do it. Our attorney advised us not to look at that footage. And I think it's important that we listen to our attorneys who are trying to help us and keep us out of trouble. There are certain lines that we just can't cross. Certain lines that I can't cross. I wouldn't advise that you cross.
Okay, I get this fear for a media outlet and like, okay, we're clearly breaking law if we put this out, but are they really? Because you're technically the one breaking the law. You're the one who did the recording. They're just the outlet putting it out. So, which they're protected under the First Amendment in putting out information that a source gave them. You would be the one prosecuted, but James still didn't want to do that.
Well, it's actually interesting, Ivory, because they essentially aided and abetted me by giving me the equipment.
Okay, so they feel that maybe they would have been, prosecuted under a rule like that.
They strung me along for 3 months, yes, and so I know how powerful the information is as a whistleblower, right? And I felt so strongly about it that when I was offered employment instead of blowing the whistle on all of this when I first met James, and I was baffled, right? I was like, I can't believe that he would offer me a job, right? Versus going out and blowing the whistle on a crime against humanity, right? I mean, that's ultimately what this all is, right? I mean, I've literally filed 3 whistleblower affidavits, which we can get to, right? I sent an affidavit to Ron Johnson with the information that Conwall has,
Good.
Ramin has, and Nick Warren. And I also cite the documentary in these affidavits, right? And yeah, it's crazy. Ron Johnson, as well as international criminal courts, right, for the United Nations, as well as overseas in the Netherlands. I'm putting my money where my mouth is and sticking up for what I know is right, right? And we can certainly dance around the topic of biology, but I know you're friendly with Alex Zek as well, and I've come to realizing how deep this fraud truly goes, right? Where coming from a Pfizer scientist perspective, where Christine Massey has all of these FOIA requests that show that this little invisible enemy doesn't actually exist, right? Or is not, because if the government was so proud of SARS-CoV-2 or any other virus that she was asking for isolation and purification, then they would have shown the proof of it, in its existence, right? And so that is a huge part of my argument and why I truly am doing this, so that we do not go through this same mistake again as
Indeed,
mankind.
that's laid out in the documentary as well. Fascinating documentary, and I don't want to bash the good work that I think Project Veritas, James O'Keefe have done. Great journalism over the years. Nobody's perfect, but it seems like they dropped the ball on some of this major evidence that could have helped inform people before they just went along with a push for this new pharmaceutical. Yeah, nobody's perfect, and I still appreciate James and Project Veritas for the good stories they have done. I know you're more suspicious of them than I am. I'm not here to trash them. I had my own experience as a whistleblower with them, where they did try to suppress my story after it was out, which I had a huge issue with and distanced myself after that. But so I totally get where you're coming from with, but they completely shut your story down. With my story, their issue was they didn't want people to know it was Fox Corp, that it was the Murdochs, that it was the owners of Fox News Channel. They wanted my story to be a little local news story. And it was coming from Fox Corp. And once it impacted James's relationship with Fox News, then they tried to shut it down.
Interesting.
So that's why I distanced myself, and that's why I can kind of relate to you, but yours is much worse.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've quite literally been psychologically terrorized at this point, which is why I'm speaking to as to why I'm doing this. And when you uncover that, the reality about virology as well, it's all right for conspiracy, my friend. So when the information that Conwell talks about, Ramin, Nick Warren, right? That's the public right now. And I can only imagine the amount of lives that would have been saved if this information was released, right? And I mean, the hashtag open the drive PV, right? That's pointing towards the fact that Project Veritas is sitting on this information still, and there's more, right? And I don't even know really what's behind all of that, but there's more. So there's it's only we're only I'm the hole in their narrative, essentially, that they never really wanted me to stick my neck out like this, and so, but I'm doing it anyways because I feel called to do it.
So where can people follow your work and your documentary? Tell me about your website and all.
So my website is called justintegrity.net, right? Standing for Just Integrity Network, right? And so I have all of these platforms. I have Rumble, I have BitChute, I have Unite Live. I have so many platforms that this is going to. I shared on Clout Hub, and there's there's links in the front page of it, right? And so
So
if
what are you doing for work now that you left, James?
I have not actually been working. I've been putting this together for 7 months since I resigned, and I mean that's how strongly I feel about it. And it's just been a long journey, right? It's been a 3.5 year journey, right? So obviously I need to make money, right? So I set up a Give Send Go. If people would like to support me, that Ivory, I'll send you the link. I also have linked my Cash App and linked a Zelle account on my website, justintegrity.net, right? And I just would also like to point out that this story is not all about me, right? I mean, I went and took the job as an undercover journalist, learned investigative journalism during this journey as well. And when I came across the other whistleblower stories, like Kim Witzak, who is on the FDA psychotropic pharma board, right, for consumer safety, my heart was ripped out. Like
Yeah, I'm familiar with her story. Her husband.
her her story is heart wrenching, and so I flew out all the way to Minnesota and met with this woman and had dinner with her, and she gave me all of this information that if James were to sit down with her and they were to do an interview or of the like, right, and sit down together and expose what she had to say, right, versus her getting strung along communicating with me and then having to go on redacted in January. So she got to tell her story eventually, but right, the story was sat on, right, and
Mm.
then
Yeah.
the whole story with Raymond Bichard, right, who I connected with and met with in person. I vetted him, and then other colleagues while at O'Keefe Media Group, they thought that Raymond had a bombshell story as well, right? Connecting how Twitter or X, right, whatever you want to call it, I like to call it Twitter still.
Me too.
If you change the search settings, it essentially becomes like a free range, like search engine for potential childhood predators, right? And
Right.
so James even asks Raymond if, hey, does Elon know about this? And I mean, this has been going on before Elon has even, bought the company, right? So
Mm.
it's just mind blowing, right? And it's not like Raymond is just some dude either, right? He did this back with Facebook in 2012, right?
Mhm.
Back with Facebook, I mean, back in 2012, he did the same exact thing that presented to James with Raymond, right? Where all that really needs to be done is an age verification search filter, right? And
Ugh,
so that's
it's
all that Twitter
sickening.
really needs to implement to make sure that, there are not young, like teenage girls, and, it's mostly teenage girls and then leading up to like a fringe age, right? Where women are literally being promoted as being abused on Twitter, right? It's really it's sad, right? Like it breaks my heart that that platform even allows this type of information, and they break their own policies as well with this content, right? So hopefully Elon can do something about this, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I would love to talk to him about it. I would love to have Raymond talk to Elon, and I hope that this documentary can bring that truth to him.
Yeah, and James in your documentary just saying that this is a non-story, it was like, wow.
I thought it was really interesting, Ivory, because before they sat down, there was a concern about optics, like with James's relationship, even with Elon, right? Like, is this going to rub Elon the wrong way? We
Ugh.
didn't know, but when they
He
sat
didn't
down,
want he wanted to keep a good relationship with Elon.
in a way, yes. And so when I mean James, if you rewatch the clips, right, in the interview, James even goes on his phone during the interview, and like I didn't necessarily notice that during the moments that it was playing out, right? But when I got back with alone time with Raymond, he was, down in the dumps, and I was excited. I thought James was going to release this story, and Raymond was like, "He's not releasing this. What do you mean?" You know, he was
Gosh.
basically deflecting off of it entirely, right? So
But he was on his phone checking
he checked his
Elon's
phone.
role.
Yeah,
Checking
he was
Elon's role.
not like the entire
Oh,
time,
okay.
but he like
Well,
looked.
this just reminds me of after I blew the whistle on Fox. I had media people coming to me from every corner of America, telling similar stories of the media control of the truth. And a man from Cumulus Radio came to me, and I connected him with James O'Keefe, and he had details on Cumulus, known to be conservative talk radio, censoring truth. So people who you think these conservative shock jocks are the most uncensored people. Turns out, starting in 2020, 2021, Cumulus starts controlling the voices of conservative talk radio. There's even I have a clip of Rush Limbaugh saying now he has to be careful with his words. It was stunning. So James meets with this guy. I'm in the room. And James has to get on the phone and ask, he's asking his staffers, is Cumulus conservative? I need to know if Cumulus is conservative. And we're like, yes, it is. He drops the story. You can't criticize a conservative outlet. What about the truth? Oh, but they're branded conservative, so we got to be friendly to them.
We got to be on their side.
I'm about the truth no matter what.
Me too. I like the quote, truth is love and love is truth. And if it's not truth, then it's not love. And if it's not love, then it's not truth.
I love that one. That goes with my little saying on my Instagram, love everyone, tell the truth. That's what I live by. Wow. Absolutely. Well, James just texted me back. See what he said. I texted him to get his reaction right after I watched the docu. He said, I don't comment on unreleased investigations, real or imagined. To do so could jeopardize a source. That's James's statement.
I'm the source.
It could jeopardize you. Well, that's his statement. That's nice of him to send a statement and not be mean that. Anyway, it's great talking to you, Justin. I hope the viewers go support you. I think that your heart's in the right place like this. With this story, I know just how it is to feel this weight on you of keeping a secret when I was working for Fox and not allowed to speak the full truth about what Fox was up to. It drove me nuts. So I know what you've been through. And the documentary is very gripping. And me covering this documentary is in no way trying to trash James I'm to this day, I am grateful to James for putting my story out and freeing me from Fox. But the evidence that you have in this documentary is very important for the public to see in regards to the pharmaceutical companies. And also in regards to just don't worship anyone. Nobody's perfect. I know there's people that put James on a pedestal, but everyone's human, and we just need to search for the truth between in the corners and cracks of everything. So thank you, Justin, for coming on. Anything else you want to say?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on, Ivory. I look forward to connecting with your audience. If your audience members want to follow me on Instagram, I'm justin.leslie3. Awesome. And on Twitter, I am justintegrity_, right? Just playing off of my website name. And yeah, everybody,
I'll put all that down below.
Yeah, and I also have a link tree that, is probably easiest as well. So I'll share that with you. And
perfect.
To everybody, thank you for listening. I appreciate all the support and, getting eyes on this story, and just, share it with everybody, because this story truly, to me, is, been held on for over 3 years at this point, right? Around 3 years. So, I hope that just as a man, right, that everybody can learn from my human experience, right? And, let's build the new free world together, right? And, I love what you do, Ivory, as an independent journalist. I think it's really strong and powerful. And, so I don't know what's going to play out from my story being told, right? But like I said, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm putting out, I've already submitted them affidavits for crimes against humanity to Pfizer, as well as, all the governments around the world for this fraud that they have committed. So, let's see how it plays out. I, could use the support from the audience, and just let's see how it rolls, because I got to continue my role as a Pfizer scientist and a whistleblower who knows better, right? This is ultimately happening because I feel that I have the blood on my hands still, right? Of not following through and letting this information going into people, right? And so let's see what happens, and hopefully we can hold Pfizer and everybody else accountable that needs to be held accountable.
Yes, stay safe, Justin. Thank you so much for what you are doing with this documentary. Everyone go watch it down below. It is called Project Whistleblower, right?
Much love, Ivory. Thank you.
Yep, Project Whistleblower Part 1 and 2. Go watch it. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.